Welcome. I am so excited for those that are gathered live. And for those of you that will be watching this at a later time, I am so honored that you chose that tonight and this particular spot with this particular subject for our first inaugural Tea with Miss G. I do have my tea. And my hope is that we are going to have an unbelievable dialogue and courageous conversation about what is happening in the world right now. I'm in this incredible space with activists, authors, scholars, and folks that want to make the world better. One kid, one class, one city, one community at a time. So, what I'd love to do is introduce you to our amazing guest, and we're going to leap in headfirst and have a really courageous conversation about what is happening right now in the world. My name is Erin Gruwell. My students call me Miss G, and it is Tea with Miss G. Those very handsome gentlemen sitting beside me in red are two original OG freedom writers, Mauricio Tony Becerra and Melvin Logan. Welcome, gentlemen. And we have three incredible educators who are joining us. Two of them are joining us from Minnesota, and one is in our backyard right here in Southern California. So I'd like to begin by introducing our Minnesotans because I believe in Minnesota nice. I'd like to introduce an incredible educator, Emily, who would like to be known as a Minnesota educator. I'm going to add the extraordinaire to that. Hi, Emily.
Hello.
And I'd also like to introduce Dr. Marcia Nelson, who is an incredible award-winning educator and administrator. Dr. Nelson was a two-time finalist for the Minnesota Teacher of the Year. I'm so proud that on the third time she will win the Minnesota Educator of the Year, but she is a two-time finalist as the Minnesota Educator of the Year. Hi, Dr. Nelson.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Wonderful. And right here in our backyard in sunny Southern California, because it's not so sunny in Minnesota today, is our esteemed assistant principal from Liberty High in Paris Union District. Hi, Johnny Muñoz.
Hello, Erin.
Wow. So for those of you that are gathering, I want to start off by reading a poem that is as profound today as it was when it was written on a subject such as the heaviness of when people don't stand up and don't speak up and don't speak out. So I want to use this poem as an introduction to our conversation about what is happening on the streets of Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and other communities throughout Southern California and the nation when it comes to immigration, and how that affects our students, how that affects our neighbors, how it affects the educators who try to create safe spaces for those beautiful kids. So the poem is called First They Came by Pastor Martin Mueller. First they came for the socialist, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Today, we want to give voice to the voiceless. Today, we are going to stand up, and speak out for our brethren, for our brothers from other mothers, our sisters from other misters, and have that beautiful spirit of what does it mean to elevate, celebrate, and shine a light on those that need to be seen. So I want to start first and foremost with you two freedom writers. You are in the business of giving voice to the voiceless, and I'm so honored that you go to schools daily with me across the nation, across the world. Tony was just with me in Mexico City and a separate trip to Puebla. When you have had the opportunity to help the most vulnerable among us. As of late, and recently, a lot of people are terrified about their immigration status. And I want to ask you two gentlemen, what has it been like for you as two young people who did not have a voice until you walked into room 203 and felt like you had a platform to speak out? What has it been like for you now when you see very vulnerable children of all ages in many states across this nation who come to you and they are scared and they are afraid, as are their parents and their teachers?
I mean, sorry, I've been a little sick. It's infuriating because we're all about giving voice to the voiceless, and especially like the smallest among us, the children and the people who don't have a voice. It's so difficult to see people like target them specifically because they can't, because they don't have a voice, because they can't stand up for themselves. Um, and it's just so difficult to see, especially when I see like, they like they claim they're coming after the worst of us, the murderers and the criminals and stuff, and then they go to Home Depot where the people are just trying to work and trying to make a better life for themselves. Especially because when you see somebody with armed to the teeth with their face covered up, and they change the plates on the cars and they do all this stuff, and never, like, the people that attack children are never in the right, you know.
So I'm glad you said Home Depot, because I know, Melvin, you live very close to the Home Depot that has been raided multiple times by ICE members here in the Long Beach community. So what is that like for you, that those are your neighbors? Those are people that you see from your home.
It was pretty scary because we watched it on the news in real time, and in my mind I'm thinking this is like maybe 5-6 blocks away. I pass this place all the time. It's scary to have my son sitting next to me on the couch watching this. His mom is a Mexican American. He's half Mexican, and he was worried. He's like, are they going to try and come get you, Mom? It's scary. I never thought. We lived through the LA riots, but I never thought it would be so widespread as it is right now. Long Beach, LA, Watts, you name it, Minnesota. It's crazy.
That is your cue, ladies, Minnesota. For those of us that are not in Minnesota, we are glued to our gadgets, watching the nightly news, absorbing every ounce of news that we can get. And so I want to start with you, Emily. You are in the smack dab in the middle of this crisis, as is Marcia, as folks who hail from this community now. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about being an educator, an activist, and someone who's married to a Latino. Your entire world is now on tactical alert. Your entire world is being an activist and standing up and speaking out. Can you share what your life has been like as of late?
Yeah, my life has been, I think there's just like a new normal of things that really should not be normal. And it's been pretty scary. It's been constantly stressed, glued to my TV and my phone as well, but more so to know when I need to go out to protect neighbors, where they need me to step in or do whatever I can to help. It's just a constant state of alert. Watching my husband's location 1,000 times a day to see if he's home, make sure he makes it home. It's just been, it's been really, really stressful. Also just like paranoia to the nth degree. Like every time I pass, specifically an SUV, more specifically one that has dark windows, and definitely one with like more than one man in it, is it's just constantly like high alert, stress. Do I need to run that license plate? Do I need to follow this person? I'm not a paranoid person. I trust way too easily. And yeah, just constant high alert, constant paranoia. Not a lot of sleep, sorry.
You know, Emily, you shared something recently with me that really stopped me in my tracks. Your husband was heading to the Whipple building in Minnesota, and you wanted to make sure that he had your number strategically on his person. So talk about what that's like to tell your husband to take out a Sharpie and to write your phone number on his body. How has that changed from, you know, like those carefree days to that terror of, is my husband going to be ascertained? Is my husband going to be falsely accused or worse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really scary. I had him write my phone number in Sharpie on his forearm. I had him write like a legal aid phone number along with it. I just this weekend I filled out this thing on an app so that if I am detained as a constitutional observer, it will notify my mom and my best friend and my husband that I am detained and who to call, how to email my boss. Never thought that would happen. Never thought, yeah, it's wild.
Dr. Nelson, as an acclaimed author and educator, you were working at an alternative school with some of the most vulnerable children. And you shared with us that a lot of your children are Indigenous and Native American, and they also have sadly been targeted. So can you explain what that's like as a Minnesotan? You were born and raised and it brings so much to your career, but what is that like now? Even your Indigenous students are terrified.
I mean, I think it's, you know, when they come to school and they say ICE was at the reservation, and I think the irony is so great when you think, and there are stories and videos showing Native Americans being taken by ICE and shipped out to Texas or wherever, and you wonder, where are they going to send a Native American person out of America if they're detaining a Native American? You know, I think that for Native American students, there's the generational trauma that's already in them from just lives, years, generations of abuse at the hands of our country, and we know that ICE is just targeting people of color and maybe just don't know the difference. I guess I'm not sure. I think that a little bit off of that, along with that, our students today are already, I think, still recovering from the COVID years and re-socializing and catching up and somewhat traumatized from what they've missed then, and now fearing this, and some going to distance learning, and it's like, how many layers of this kind of trauma can our kids take?
Johnny, Marcia mentioned something that sadly is a sad reality about racial profiling. And I know you were born and raised in New Mexico before you became an educator here in California. And have you had fear, as somebody who has a Latino background, that even though you are an esteemed educator, even though when you put on that tie and you help run your school, that when you leave your school and are running errands or or out on the street that someone could see you make a false assumption just based on your skin color, and you yourself could be racially profiled?
Absolutely. I know my husband and I have had a plan just in case one of us is out and we are detained by ICE. We've talked on how we're going to communicate with each other. But it is scary. You go out shopping and you do see the eyes looking at you. And we also fear what else is coming up ahead of this, because we are part of the LGBTQ community as well. And his plan, even though he says he's not, it's there, and we're just anticipating and nervous and anxious. When are we next? When is it next? We did have an ICE raid just a block away from our home. I was on my way to work and notified my husband and told him be alert, because we were taking care of his mother. We have my mother-in-law living with us, and she's also stopped walking. She loved to walk in our neighborhood, and she fears that. And it's unfortunate that we have to put some of our regular routines on pause because we fear going out and being targeted because of the color of our skin. And also we are cautious of going out to eat at a restaurant or going to a movie because of the color of our skin and because we are a couple.
I want to share with our audience one of the greatest moments of my life was officiating your wedding, Johnny. Bringing you and Mike together was so beautiful, and just hearing you take that pause and in the foreseeable future being afraid that right might be taken from you and Mike makes me very sad. I want to ask you, Emily. I feel sad and I feel anxious, and I know that those of us that chose this profession, it was bigger than all of us. It was a calling, and we went in to be servant leaders. We went in to give voice. And have you felt that the heaviness of sadness and fear and anxiety with this profession?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we have probably like 10% of our students who are staying home. We are shifting again to like COVID times a little bit and trying different learning models to meet the needs of our students. And that is just challenging for everyone involved. We are, one thing that I think is really strong about Minneapolis is the community solidarity and how everybody is really coming together, and the idea that we keep us safe. And I think that is especially true in education. We have educators basically like on patrol before and after school in parking lots and at doors, making sure that ICE doesn't come. We had some recesses recently moved indoors because ICE was in the area. So it's just constant stress and anxiety and worrying about the kids. I mean, you all know that when you have kids in your lives, it's just constant worry about them, whether they're in the classroom or at home. So yeah, it's anxiety all the time.
Marcia, you were the epitome of when I think of Minnesota. You were one of my first friends from Minnesota, and I love that I've been there a couple dozen times since. So I love your state. I love Minnesotans. There's something very special about what they call Minnesota nice. And so as someone who exudes that, can you talk about what you have seen in the states, even in the communities that you formerly taught and currently teach? What is happening where ordinary people are doing extraordinary things for the less fortunate and the most vulnerable?
Well, I think like Emily said, that protest is proof of democracy. some people see that differently, but protest is proof of democracy, and the people show up. They're, I think the day before Alex Preddy was killed, there was a protest in Minneapolis that I've heard between 50 and 100,000 people that had shown up to just, and it was like 30 below. I mean, we have had a horrible cold streak, and people calmly out to say, we care about our people here, and we care about what's happening. We care about all people here. And we are simply braving these elements because we want to say, these people matter to us, and we need something different to happen here. And the people that are out are the people who feel like we can be out and not have something bad happen to us. Now, of course, the next day that was proven to not be true. But not only that, showing up in a crowd of 50,000 people, but knowing that people can't leave their homes for fear of being taken. They are buying groceries, delivering groceries. They are, I think that Emily talked when I heard you talk about people with medical backgrounds going to people's homes, helping them because they don't feel comfortable leaving, walking students to school to help them get there safely, bringing clothes, bringing all the things, just saying, what do you need? What can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I help you feel safe? And I think that Minnesotans do that anyway, but to a even greater degree. I think there have been restaurants that have said, we will feed people, come in, and if you can donate a few extra bucks for a meal, do that. If you need a meal, you get one. There, all the ways that you can think of, it's happening just from the ground up. They're creative ways of just showing love to neighbors.
Wow. You're making my eyes well with tears. And I just want to read a beautiful comment that was just posted in the chat room. This is from Dr. Reifer from the University of San Diego. We affectionately call him Tom Pock in Freedom Writer Teacher World, but he said, all of us in California and the rest of the country are so proud of all of you in Minnesota and are in solidarity with you and all others around the country.
And I think we've heard that a lot, and we hear you and we appreciate that. It's hard, and it means a lot to hear that. Thank you.
I want to ask you, Melvin and Tony, we've had the honor and privilege to work with some students in Yucaipa, and Melvin, you did a live podcast with them, and just days after that podcast, this young student, Mateo, he and his parents were going to court. Dutifully, they are pleading asylum. Mateo was here in this country to help with medical needs, some very serious medical needs, and he was unceremoniously ascertained, and within 24 hours was sent back to Colombia. And I know that both you and Tony have spent a lot of time with that young man, and now there's an empty desk. A young girl that he was dating whose boyfriend was gone, teachers and counselors and administrators who felt gutted and powerless. So can I ask both of you to talk about that personal connection when someone comes and takes a student who has done everything right, who was trying to be honest and fair and live a better life, escape the cartel in his country while getting the medical attention he needed, and he's no longer at that school, and he's no longer in our country.
You know, I could see Mateo in my mind with his glasses, and very timid voice. It makes me angry. It makes me sad and angry because number one, these are middle school kids, and part of their classes is, you know, they're teaching you social studies and they're teaching you the history, and in those classes they teach you that the French came in as immigrants, the British came in as immigrants, right? All of these different countries came in as immigrants, and immigrants are what America's about. And this is what they're being taught in school. They're taking tests on this, right? And then they go outside of school, and everything that they've been taught about what America is supposed to be is the complete opposite of what they see. You know, they're being taught that this is the land of hopes and dreams, and this is the place where you can come and be anything you want to be. Look at all the other countries that came here, and this is how the United States was started. And as soon as they step out, it almost feels like they're being fed a pipe dream, and it makes me angry. Because I was one of those kids. I still believe in that dream. The fact that I'm sitting next to Tony, the fact that the group of eclectic freedom riders that we have, like, we wouldn't be who we were if we weren't a bunch of a mixed melting pot of different cultures. So it breaks my heart that they're being told one thing and being shown something else.
Tony, I want to point out that Mateo is actually from Green Valley Alternative High School. So he's a little older than middle school. And he came here as part of this reinvention was to be an educated young man. So Tony, I know that your parents came to this country to have the dream for you and your family. So as a first generation with parents who came from other countries, do you have empathy for what Mateo and others are going through when they realize we can't get the medical care for him in his home country? We don't want to lose our son. We want to give him every opportunity that ultimately you and your family had by coming to America.
Yeah. You know, anytime I hear the people that are against, you know, that are people that are for ICE and whatever, they always say, like, do it the right way, right? Everybody's got to do it the right way. And these people are doing it the right way, or at least they're trying to, right? They go to their court, they're working, they're trying to, you know, fulfill the American dream. My parents both came here illegally. My mom crossed over the desert. My dad actually was in the military in Mexico, but whenever, you know, anybody asked him, how did you come over? He said, I walked. He said, I just walked to the front, showed him my military ID, and they just let me right in. He's like, I'm not illegal. I just, you know, he's like, I just came over and started working. And it's funny to me that my mom's favorite president, I'm not exaggerating with you, is Ronald Reagan, right? Super Democrat, my mom, but her favorite president is Ronald Reagan because she said that he gave her residency and then later her citizenship. In 1982, she got asylum because she was a refugee from El Salvador. And the requirement was that you had to be in this country for at least a year and you needed to show proof. And she said that when she went, she took me with her. And when they said, where's your proof? She lifted me up and said, here's my proof. This baby was born in the United States, right? And they're both citizens now. They're both very proud to be American. My whole thing is we fight and we protest because we are American. You know, we love this country. I hate that there's like there's like the Americans, like, and then there's all of us who are fighting and protesting. When you love something, you don't leave it, you make it better. And that's what these people are doing. Everybody's here to make this country better. That's what makes this country so great.
Johnny, when Tony used a word, I kind of winced because as an English teacher, words have power and weight. And I know, sadly, after both Renee Good and Alex Preddy were killed, the words to describe them were so horrendous. But before we talk about Alex and Renee, I want to talk about the words of illegal versus undocumented, and even hearkening back to what Dr. Nelson said earlier about those that are indigenous, and they were the first nation that were here. So when you hear words like illegal, what does that do to you? Does that make you wince as well when they're describing people that we know, that we work with, and that we love?
It hurts sometimes, especially for our indigenous people and our Hispanic people. Most of us are American. The borders crossed us. We didn't cross any borders, and I love what Dr. Nelson said, and even our freedom riders, Tony and Melvin, and our other freedom rider, Minnesota teachers. They described what makes America great: helping each other, supporting each other. It doesn't matter if you're legal or illegal. Everybody has this dream to be an American and to be in this country because we want to better our lives. Some of our parents have sacrificed so much, to give us a better life. I know my parents did that, working 2 to 3 jobs and making my life better and reaching my goals and stuff that they weren't given that chance back in the days when they grew up because of their color of their skin. And here we are repeating history again. We're asking educators to be doctors, to be lawyers, to be social workers, psychologists, nurses, and also protect our kids from bullets. And now we're asking our educators to protect them from our government. And when a kid walks in, we don't look at them as legal or illegal. And it's heartbreaking that we have to label ourselves like that. And the process to become a citizen is hard. We do have friends that, they've been waiting 30 years for this process. And to label them as illegal, I don't see them as illegal. I see them as friends working hard to be in this country, to provide for their families and to provide for their children to have a better life. And it's until we understand and respect each other that we all want the same thing, we all want the same dream. And none of us are illegal for that.
I love some of the quotes from our chat room that are on the screen. No one is illegal on stolen land. I believe that Matthew Logan, that was on the screen. I think that may be your son, a freedom writer scholar, second generation, so profoundly just wrote in the chat room, may every human feel shaken right now by ICE. You are not alone. Here's the best part, Daddy. Hold on to your humanity, your compassion, and each other. Wow. Emily, this came in directly from the chat room specifically for you. Someone in our chat room just asked, Emily, can we hear more about what's really happening in Minneapolis? The news has been very confusing. So you are boots on the ground. I want to hear about all of the things you've seen, experienced, that you carry with you, the noises in the air. Give us a bird's eye view from an educator's perspective of what is now happening and has been happening in your beautiful city.
The sounds in the air, lots of helicopters, lots of drones. I experienced last night. I was on my way home from the gym, and I saw something come through on the chat that pretty close to me there was a raid happening, and so I drove there with my whistle and my phone and stood in the street with some neighbors. I got as close as I could to really scary men who were all masked up, mask, glasses, tactical gear, really, really, really big guns, mace, pepper spray. There were a lot of them. It was very scary. I was, when I've been recounting this experience, I said that I was pretty brave in the moment, so I'm pretty proud of myself. But then as soon as I got to my car, not brave anymore. There were a lot of tears happening. It was really traumatic seeing that in real life, next to my house, next to my neighborhood. These are my neighbors, my friends. Yeah, really, really horrible. I lost what I was going to say, but yeah, that was just traumatic, really traumatic. And that's happening everywhere in the city. While I was at work today, I saw more messages come through about all of these different spots in my neighborhood where it was happening. I felt helpless because I was at work. That's been really hard too, trying to like pretend, oh, we have business as usual, go on your life, like everything is normal. And then knowing that we have fascism in our streets, people being abducted. Oh, that's what I was going to say. All of us yesterday prevented a man from being taken from his house. So that gives me hope. All of those whistles and cameras really, really helped. So that gives me hope, but it's scary. Yeah, it's scary.
I'm loving these comments that are coming in about your bravery, your courage, and solidarity. What is it like when you smell pepper spray in the air and it gets in your eyes and in your lungs and you're walking around with whistles? Do you feel that as a line of defense, a simple whistle or a camera phone? Is it scary knowing that you are an unarmed educator who's just trying to call attention to what's happening?
Yeah, thankfully I have not had any chemical things in my face. I thought it was going to happen yesterday. They were prepping something. I don't know if it was like a flashbang. I know that one of the guys close to us had a can of mace. Thankfully, oh, thank you, that person who said that. I don't think that's true. I'm just trying to help neighbors, but thank you. That was a scary part to me. I mean, the big gun was also extremely scary, but I thought we were going to be maced or pepper sprayed. I think we have a lot of donations of gas masks and these little things you put on your water bottle where you can spray and help pepper spray. I don't know what it does, but it helps. And people offering services like Marcia said, people saying like, I'm a medic, I can be medic service from this hour to this hour. If you need anything, if you get maced, come like, let me know. We have this warm house, I will be there. So knowing that we have all of that is helpful. And also like, how is this normal? Like, how is this my life right now? I don't know. And I also want to recognize that this is life for a lot of people in our country all the time. As a white woman, it's pretty new to me, and it's scary. And I know that for my people of color in this country, it's scary all the time. So I want to acknowledge that.
Johnny, you talked about when you and your husband are out in the world with that fear that you're now carrying things. So what are you finding that you're now walking out of the house with that you probably never had to do your entire life in both New Mexico and California? What are you now walking around in your pockets and on your person?
My birth certificate, my social security number, my proof of marriage that I have. It's documents that no one should ever carry with you to work. Just because I look brown and Hispanic, I'm labeled by some as an illegal immigrant, and I'm not. I'm third generation born here, and it's frustrating, to have these conversations. We've never owned a weapon, and that's been in discussion as well. Do we purchase one for our safety? Because we don't know in the middle of the night if they're going to target our house, or who's watching us come home, or who's watching me come home. So we're in a situation or in a place where we shouldn't have to carry our proof if we're an American citizen, and just because the color of our skin. And that it doesn't mean that we label anybody. It doesn't matter what color of skin. Not everybody is a racist. Not everybody belongs to a gang, and not everybody is here illegally. But unfortunately, right now, it's uncomfortable to take these documents, and because you just have it in the back of your head, what if? And you see these videos on TikTok, and these ICE agents don't even care about those papers. They don't. They disrespect the people. They throw them out, and they still take them, and they wherever they go, and later on you find out they are released. So yeah, we fear that. I fear being at work and having someone call me that they took my husband. Where did they take him? Where is he at? And he fears the same way. And we constantly text. I never did before. I made it home, or I made it to work. I'm here at work, and he'll text me, back home. I just finished shopping. So it's different. Our lives have definitely changed in this uncomfortable feeling that we can't even go out to walk our dogs, or my mother-in-law can't even go walking because she fears being picked up.
Johnny, I don't know if you had heard when Renee Nicole Good was shot, and she was there with her wife, that there was some really insidious things said about her and her sexuality and her partner. And I'm curious, although she is Caucasian, how did that make you feel that they were making horrific comments about her and how she loves, as if that was some kind of justification for that death?
Hate. That's all I can describe as hate. They have this belief, or they're following these religious belief of our lifestyle is wrong, and because it is wrong, you need to be either in prison or killed, executed. I've seen that on social media, and these hateful people that are signing up to be ICE agents, they don't care. There's no value for life, no matter what it is, whether you're straight, gay. They just have this hate. And if they don't agree with how you live, they have the power now to do something. And that's what's scary.
Dr. Nelson, I want to use two words: a poet, a nurse for veterans. And Melvin asked a really interesting question before we came together. If the irony that both this poet and this nurse were Caucasian, if that is bringing more attention to the situation. So I want you to talk about, as a Minnesotan, your neighbors were out there trying to do exactly what Emily's doing with her whistle and her trying to help neighbors. How has that conversation been in Minnesota? Because these two people who did lose their lives were good people, and they've been vilified. And for Melvin and Tony, they have seen a lot of people lose their lives that were sadly young men of color. So for them, after you answer, I want to ask them to kind of give a little flavor to my question. But I'm just curious if the fact that both Alex and Renee were Caucasian, has it been something that people discuss specifically in Minnesota?
Yeah. I mean, and it's been discussed in all kinds of different ways. It's been discussed, well, if they just stayed home, they'd be fine. They shouldn't have been there. They're in the way. Just let them do their jobs and they'd still be alive. That's been one of the big comments, that these people that are trying to get in the way, they're putting themselves in harm's way, so it's their own fault. And there's all kinds of ways that it's been twisted, as in my opinion, for why they're killed. And I think that it's also then been a kind of a turning point for some of the followers of the administration because, wait a minute, we signed up for this because it was supposed to be the criminals and the drug dealers and the murderers and the rapists. That's who was supposed to be, shipped away. And if they were killed in the melee, then we'd be okay with that. Not these white people. And so I think that was kind of a turning point. I don't think it was by accident that then suddenly there were, 4 Black reporters that were arrested, but that's maybe a different. I think that there was a let's turn the page a little bit and turn the attention to something that would be more acceptable. But that may not be answering your question.
No, I want to ask Melvin and Tony, whoever wants to go first, because you live in a city as Southern California Angelenos, who our story started because of the Rodney King video. Our story started because of riots in the streets and homicides that were not recognized on the nightly news or in our newspapers or obituaries. And sadly, they weren't recognized oftentimes because it was either African-American, Latino, or Cambodian immigrants in the city of Long Beach who were being shot. So I'm curious for you as 2 young men of color who have both lost friends and family that were not recognized. What is that discussion like now that it has been 2 Caucasians that have lost their life and there's a lot of conversation about it?
So I guess you got to put it into perspective. Like Tony and I grew up right smack dab in the LA riots in 94. But the only reason we had LA riots is because somebody had this huge shoulder-sized camcorder that they ran and they were sneaking over a fence and they were filming what was happening. There weren't cameras everywhere. People didn't have cell phones. There weren't traffic cams and ring cams. It was a guy with the camera and he filmed it. And I really think if he hadn't filmed it, we wouldn't have heard anything about it. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to yesterday, right? These cameras are putting people on blast. Society is going to hold you accountable for what's going on. And I think Minnesota is a exhibition. The macrocosm is an it's kind of displaying the microcosm of each little city. And the fact that they were white, makes a big difference because there were a lot of people who were shot and beaten and abused by ICE all through the country, right up the street from my house, that they didn't put on camera. All they showed was ICE was being attacked and there's this mob of crazy people trying to attack ICE, but they didn't show what was happening. And then in Minnesota, 2 beautiful people, Black or white, but the fact that they were white, that now, our neighbors are like, well, wait a minute, because that guy looks just like me and she looks just like I do. And now it's getting close to home. And like you read in the poem, the first thing you read in the poem, there were the steel workers and they came after them. And then I didn't say anything because I wasn't a steel worker.
A socialist.
Yeah, you see.
Steelers, football, but social. But I agree that the idea that when we weren't speaking out then, so that going back to that poem, like first they came for this and this, Emily, for the Minnesotans that now are standing on the streets, is your phone always on alert? And I know that there's something that you've actually put on your phone. I'd love for you to share that with us, because your phone is your lifeline and it also can be easily taken away from you. So talk about how that phone is both a hindrance and a help.
I think I only see it as a help right now, I guess. Maybe a hindrance because I'm glued to it, watching what's happening in my neighborhood and then not sleeping or waking up in the middle of the night and checking what's happening. So that's a hindrance, I guess. But I think it's a help. We all videoed from different angles what was happening yesterday, which I think is important because God forbid if something happened like what happened to Renee or to Alex, we would have evidence. So yeah, I think it's helpful, as scary as that is.
And I know that your family, you originally were born and raised in Nebraska, outside of Omaha. You were telling me about something on your phone that will alert your mom if something, God forbid, was to happen to that phone or to happen to you. So share to those that are not familiar with this app and that lifeline for you, for your folks who don't live in Minnesota, they're in another state.
Yeah, I was actually born in St. Paul, fun fact. So I'm back to my birth state, and happy to be. But yeah, I have an app on my phone ready now, and I input all of this information over the weekend, and I had it send to my mom, my best friend, also a freedom writer teacher, shout out Katie, and my husband, and it says, I'm at risk of being detained. Please call this legal agency. My documents are here and here and here. The code for my house is this. Also, please email my boss, tell her sorry. And yeah, and so if something happens, I open the app, I click a button, and it sends that text to those 3 people.
Wow. We put that on that QR code on the screen. It's called Ready Now. And what is that like? I know Johnny was talking about walking around with documents. You now have all of your ducks in a row. How strange is that you have to think, if something was to happen, alert my mother in Nebraska, alert my boss, alert my husband. How strange is that, looking at your life in these little snapshots of having all of that at the touch of a finger to be sent out if you were to be ascertained?
I can't believe that it's our new normal. I can't believe that I have to do this. I can't believe that I'm living in a world where I'm telling my mom I might be arrested and she doesn't like bat an eye about it. I mean, she's concerned about it, but she's not like, don't do this. She knows I'm doing what's right and standing up. I just can't believe it. And when is it going to end? That's what I also want to know. I'm just done, tired.
Marcia, I met you 20 years ago. You became part of the very first cohort of Freedom Writer teachers, these 16 dynamic educators from all over the United States who said yes. And the first thing you told me about the students that you work with was that you were a dealer in hope. And you now work with really vulnerable teenagers who have crippling anxiety and depression. And I'm just curious, as someone who is optimistic and a dealer in hope, how do you deal that hope to your beautiful babies on a daily basis?
I think it's a process to teach all people. It's not just kids anymore. I mean, or maybe it never has been. But I think it's trying to teach that we can't look at the whole picture all the time, that what we have to look at is what we can control, and that's a learned skill. That's something that we have to practice, and that finding people and being people that we can trust, and teaching trust, teaching how do we do that, because they look at the world around them, and how do we learn, how do we trust the world? I mean, again, that's really hard to watch the news, to watch what's happening out there, and to think that there's anybody that's trustworthy. But that doesn't mean that the person sitting next to you, or your teacher, or your guidance counselor, or your neighbor aren't. I mean, if you have Emily as your neighbor, you're the luckiest person in the world, right? And you figure out that there are people that you can trust, and that is something that's in your control, not what you're watching on the screen or hearing about. So I think it is teaching about the little pieces that you can control, and about taking it one moment at a time and one day at a time. I think it's about writing in your journal and not bottling everything up, and experiencing that it matters when you get it out on paper, that it just feels different. And you can't tell somebody that it's going to matter. They have to do it and feel it. And then they have to have a year go by of doing it and look back and say, oh my gosh, I don't feel that anymore, but I remember, and I've gotten past it, and that's growth. And all of those things represent hope. And so hope is a process. Hope also comes from being at the lowest place in your life and emerging out of it. I mean, maybe just living through it, but emerging out of it. And some of that is then studying history. Our world has been in low places before, and we have emerged out of those low places. And I think that we will emerge out of this low place as well. So hope is cyclical. I mean, history is cyclical. And we get there one moment at a time, one person at a time, one lesson at a time, and one step at a time, one day at a time. And you can't take it all on in the big world, at all together. So I think that's what we all teach. I have to tell you that I saw, and this is available online, but another just outside of Minneapolis, the school that the little 5-year-old boy with the bunny hat that he came from. And he's now, I believe, back in Minneapolis, but in his little elementary school, the teachers are 23 parents from that school have been detained. That kids go home and they're gone. But the teachers had those students write, and they wrote letters to ICE agents, and they said, you have to be positive and loving in your letters. And they read some of them out loud, and that's what they wrote about is we want you to be kind to people. We want you to see people and not feel hate and not treat them with hatred. And they were absolutely breathtaking, beautiful, moving, unbelievable that these little children that have experienced such pain and heartache, that they wrote the most loving thing to the people that caused them so much hurt. If they can be hopeful and show that to those people, we can do this.
Tony, I often said to you and Melvin, in a city that tried to pit you against each other, that it is hard to hate who you know, and now you are brothers. But I also wanted you guys to learn from history, so we weren't going to repeat it. And you were part of the Freedom Rider delegation that went to Anne Frank's attic on August 4th, the day that she was captured. You were one of the people that went to Auschwitz-Birkenau and walked on those railroad tracks. And now you help teach young people about history. So I want to know from you, when you think about that little boy that Marcia was just talking about in the streets of Minnesota, and knowing that there were young people, even the young girl wearing the red coat in Schindler's List, who was taken out of the Warsaw Ghetto, What does that feel like now when we've always said if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it? Are we repeating it? And are you feeling a sense of sadness, or are you feeling more hope like Dr. Nelson? Where do you sit now that you've been educated about history?
I think we're definitely starting to repeat it. I feel like I didn't really put my life in order until we started learning about the Holocaust, until we went to Auschwitz and we had Mel Melmerstein, a Holocaust survivor, come with us. And because we didn't learn about it as something that happened in history. We learned about it from a firsthand account from a survivor who was there. He said, this is where we were. This is where they killed my family. This is where this happened. And it really put my own life in perspective. And I feel like now, especially with these kids, they're starting to kind of see all this turmoil, and we're starting to see it all over again, with the riots and everything we endured. Like Melvin was saying, or like Marcia was saying, we're holding people accountable now with the phones and everything, with the cameras, because how many of us, who grew up in the hood have stories of, law enforcement pulling you over for no reason, ripping my seats out, destroying my car, looking for drugs that aren't there. And, and then when I argue and I ask for their badge number or something, they say, I don't have to give you anything. You're just a stupid kid from the hood, and it's like, we all have that, but at least now where I feel like we're holding people accountable, but we're also holding people accountable as like one entity. We're not out there protesting by race or by economics or by social standing. We're just out there being human, and we're not saying like, I'm fighting for this particular this particular group of people's rights. We're saying we're fighting for everybody's rights, for everybody, to be American, whether you're undocumented or not. Like, we're here, we're trying to do something better. And I think the positive thing, if there is a positive thing that's going to come out of all of this, is it's going to unite us, and it's going to turn us into like one people.
Johnny, I want to ask you a question as someone who does love to stand up. You have stood up for your students. I understand that ICE wanted confidential information about your kids, and you knew in your gut that's illegal. So tell me about, what is it like when you stand up to ICE or to a parent or to a community, and you did all of those things? What is it like in that, as a principal? You're trying to course correct kids. Sometimes it's a little harder to course correct adults. But I love and applaud that you did. And can you share what that was like when you had an existential crisis, when you were being asked to do things that you knew went against the very fiber of what you do as an educator?
Yeah. I came from a world of student activities. I planned events, I planned assemblies, school dances, spirit rallies, football games. So I decided to take the leap into administration, and I'm only in my third year. But I do remember my first year, and I transferred from one district to another school district. And I was excited because this district was ahead of the game here in California. They were providing social workers for our students who are hurting with mental illness. They had a behavior therapist to work with students who had behavior issues. They had substance abuse intervention counselor to help students break the addiction. So I was excited to come to this district that was ready to help our kids. And as the school year was going forward, that my first year in 23-24, I saw resistance towards that. There was district leaders and district people who were against this and were pushing out the district leadership that hired me. They were pushing them out, and they slowly left. And this new regime came into the district, dismantling all of that. And it was hard, because we had a DEI director. They got rid of that. They were starting to ban books. They were looking at the books that students were reading in our libraries and teachers were providing in their classroom. They were banning that. And this whole new school board also came that was very much against helping kids and firing people on the spot for these positions. So when this new leadership in our government took over in 24, there was a document that came out right after his inauguration from an interim superintendent at the time that said we needed to cooperate with ICE, hand over the students, and then notify parents. Completely opposite of what I was trained to do. We were to protect the privacy of our students and our staff. And being really honest with you, I was very much against this. And it was a Google document sent to our district leaders to follow these directions. And if you didn't, there would be consequences for us not following that. And honestly, I wasn't going to follow it. In the document was, like I said, cooperate with ICE agents, hand over the student, then call the parents. And I tried to save that document. I tried to print it out, but I didn't know that you can lock it and you can't print it or you can't save it. And when I tried to do that, I got an email from the interim district leader at the time asking me why I was trying to do this. And I quickly responded with, well, I want reference. So when this does happen on our campus, I am ready to follow your directions. But in back of my head, I was like, hell no. F no, I'm not doing this. I cannot do this to our students. It's not fair. You're asking me to just hand them over and then communicate with the parents. That's completely opposite of what we are told to do. So, moving forward, the district leadership has changed, and our new leader that came in, our permanent superintendent came in, he did away with that, and it was completely the opposite. Protect the students, protect the families at all costs. So, I'm grateful for this new leadership that's coming in, but there's still a long way to go because we still have school board members that dominate our board, and they're still trying to push agendas that now they're facing their own resistance. So I agree with Dr. Nelson that we got to keep hope, and love will conquer this hate that we have. And I love that the students are writing letters to ICE agents, and that's an amazing idea. Maybe that's what we all need to do, is put these letters when they're out there and put them in their pockets or throw them in their vehicles and say, read this, because I'm a strong believer that we got to hold on to this hope and that love will conquer hate.
I love that. I want to end with a call to action. I put out, for lack of a better term, the bat signal in this sense of urgency. I think a lot of us have felt hopeless and powerless and wanting to have conversations and not be in trouble with bosses and et cetera, and family members. And so there was this urgency of now. Would you be willing to talk about it? And you all said yes. So first and foremost, thank you for that courage to say yes on a cold night, no less. Is that the Cookie Monster in the background?
Not
Johnny's dog is wanting to be a part of this conversation, which I love, since he ate all of the cookies at the wedding that he officiated. But this urgency of now is something is happening. It's not right. We have brethren near and wide, and we want to rally. And so I'm gonna ask each of you individually if you could think about, what can we do? Is there a call to action? Is there a strike? What do you think that those that are watching, feeling supportive, feeling in solidarity, feeling the compassion that your son talked about, Melvin? And I want to start with you, Dr. Nelson, the first group of Freedom Rider teachers that we brought into this fold 20 years ago. What is the action item that you'd like us to take?
I think just going back to what I was just talking about about continuing to teach hope, and to maybe, and that maybe starts with the belief that we can instill hope one person at a time, that it matters when you connect one person at a time, and that you trust and show trust and goodness, and you know, that matters, that we know that all people are seeing all of these really difficult things happen around us, and that it really does matter when you reach out and do something small that makes a difference to other people. I guess that's always been the thing for me. That is something that's very much within our control, and I think it matters more than we often remember that it does. It matters to them, and maybe more importantly, when we do that, that connection matters to us.
I love that. Tony and Melvin, your action item then was to pick up a pen rather than a fist or a gun. What is your action item today? Those of you that you are in the trenches, fighting the good fight, but what is something that we that are watching or listening to can do to be part of the resistance?
I would say there's so many people that are undocumented that still need to work, that still need to go out there and sell tacos and sell chips and sell, whatever they can, because they're out there hustling. I would say try to support those people, try to help those people out. I try to carry cash on me just so I can buy some churros or buy a tamal or buy something from them, because the quicker they sell that stuff, the quicker they can go home. I feel like sometimes we forget about those people, and they're in danger, but they still need to eat. So I just say, support those people, regardless.
It's funny that Tony said that, because that's something I was going to say. Go out and protest. Raise your voice, but sometimes you got to move in silence. The lady that she sells a taco. She's not just a taco lady. That's Rosie. We know her name. We see her every day. Rosie has the brightest smile. She doesn't speak English very well, but she always says, "Hello, good morning." So when you're out there and you see those black trucks with those 4 men in it, when you see ICE rolling around in the neighborhood, what we'd like to do is just make sure we go out and say, "Hey, I just want to let you know that they're in the area. So if there's anything you need to do to protect yourself," the guy who runs the meat market next door worked there for 80 years or 40 years. It was been there for 80 years. The owner sold it to him. He's undocumented, but he owns that restaurant, or that meat market. So we'll go in there and say, "Hey, we just saw them around the corner. Why don't you close the gates, and then we'll let you know when they're gone." Just kind of moving in silence.
I love that. Johnny, you tell people what to do as a principal, assistant principal. Give us an action item or a call to action so that we can do something and not feel so powerless or helpless. What can we do?
I love your quote. I've always, when I first was with the Freedom Riders back almost 12 years ago now, the quote of "write what needs to be written." You just said it earlier. I love that, because now we need to take action when action is needed. We need to stand up when we need to stand up to help people who are out in the streets or in our communities. And we need to go protest when we have the chance to go protest against this. Because I honestly think that we are the larger group, but we need to make them scared and let them fear us with the love that we're going to give back.
I love that. Emily, I wanted to end with you deliberately because you are smack dab in the epicenter, and we are watching. And you are our teacher tonight, and you are now our friend. And I want everyone that is watching to know that we are learning from you, and we have such empathy for you, and you are surely not alone. But I've loved all these images that are popping on the screen that are telling you how brave you are and how courageous you are. And I know that there's a part of you that doesn't feel brave and courageous, but you are, as we lionize you. So I wanted you to have that last word, because it's not over for you yet. It's still cold. It's still dark. People wearing dark masks, driving dark cars with dark intentions are still knocking on your neighbors' doors or taking battery rams. They're still blocking streets and trying to get into your school district and take your children away. So please, as humble service, tell us what we can do to help.
I first want to say thank you to Marcia. I feel like what you talked about with hope and love and compassion, that gave me some hope back, because I haven't had a lot of it lately. And that's also a very foreign concept to me. I'm usually so positive and upbeat, and the world is perfect. And I'm not that right now. And so thank you for giving me a little bit of hope back. The other thing that's giving me hope is seeing the solidarity of people in all across Minnesota, but specifically the solidarity of people in the Twin Cities. I am so grateful to be a part of this group of incredible humans. I'm not going to cry, but
I'm crying.
I'm really, really grateful to be a part of this and to see what can happen when people really band together. And so I think my call to action would be, in wherever you are, to band together with your neighbors, to support each other, to love each other, to bring what you can to the table. If that is medical aid, if that is going to buy groceries for somebody, whatever it might be. If you want to help Minneapolis specifically, there are a lot of, and you have the financial means to do so, there are a lot of mutual aid things that you can contribute to. If you know somebody in Minneapolis, ask them, and they will, you can Venmo them and they'll get the money to where it needs to be. There are people who need help with rent because, like Tony was talking about, they can't go out and sell the tamales. They can't do anything. They're not safe to do so. So they're at home with no income at all, needing money for rent, money for groceries. And so the neighbors, the city is helping with that. And so I think right now, if you are able, monetary donations to Minneapolis would be very much appreciated.
You know, we lived through, ironically, with your city, a young girl, 14 years old, taking out her phone and recording George Floyd's last breath. We lived through a summer of the power of saying a name. Breonna Taylor, the last image that Breonna Taylor witnessed was the Freedom Riders movie. It was on her screen when she was shot. So there's a power of names. Tonight we are not just honoring Renee Good and Alex Peretti. We are honoring all of the names of our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, our community. And so those of you at home, I want you as well to think of a name, and saying that name gives us power. It gives them a legacy. Anne Frank is alive because of her words, not weapons. So I'm going to ask each of you to say a name, either posthumously that you are praying for them, or someone right now that you are praying for, that you want us to know their name and that they will be safe. And for me, we have somebody that we have loved dearly in our community for 20 years. And she is both trans and she is undocumented. And her name is Marta. So for me, the name that I want to recognize is Marta. Tony, who is a name that you can recognize with honor and respect?
One of my neighbors, his name is Chris. He just, he works in a neighborhood, and he just doesn't. He works at a restaurant, and he can't go to work, just because he's scared, and he's just staying home, and he's trying to work from home. He's trying to do the best he can, but he can't. He can't make ends meet. So,
To Chris. Melvin, do you have a name that you'd like to honor and say their name?
This lady gets up. She's at her post from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock at night. We see her every day. She works beside us. She's out there trying to make a living for her family, undocumented. Her name is Rosie. Rosie, the lady that sells us tacos in the morning when we got the munchies. So to Rosie.
To Rosie. Johnny, is there a name that you'd like to honor?
It's not a name, but it's my past, my present, and my future students who come to school scared and fear that they may go home without a parent or two parents. So it's all my students who are in this crazy situation right now.
That's so beautiful. Dr. Marcia, do you have a name or names that you'd like to honor?
I have some good friends of mine whose it's their family, an employee and their good friend who has been taken and the Whipple building and sent away, and they are still hoping that he will. I mean, he's here legally, and it doesn't matter. And so I will just leave it at that and hope that they will figure it out and that he will come home.
Mm-hmm. Emily, there's probably so many names, but I think there's power with those names. So you are not limited to a single name. So please, if you'd like to share some names, I think it's important for us all to know them, to say them. I'd like to add Mateo, the student that we lost this year. So if you'd like to say a single name or names, I would be honored to hear that.
Yeah, a lot of names in my heart. I think the one I will say right now, though, is Jesus, my husband. He needs to come home safely. There are a lot of people who need him to be here safely. So I will say him.
I hope for all of you that are watching or listening to keep those names, hold them dear, to feel that you have a community and solidarity in this Freedom Rider family, to stand on the shoulder of giants like Emily, Johnny, Marcia, Tony, and Melvin, to reach out in those moments where we don't feel so strong. And as Emily mentioned with Marcia, maybe just reaching out or hearing words like hope reminds us. Emily, I recognized you when you bounced and were so optimistic and so hopeful. And I don't want you to ever put on airs and be something you're not. Now is a time for you to grieve what was, to be sad and to be vigilant. And hope will spring eternal. But I want you to know that we are with you. We are so, so proud of you. And I just thank you so much for the courage that you carry with that whistle and that phone as you fight for the educators that have this beautiful calling, for those amazing young people, and for Jesus. May he be safe every moment of every day. For everyone else, thank you. Grab somebody close and give them a squeeze. And please continue to lead with love, show compassion and humanity. And thank you for joining us tonight for this beautiful conversation about a really difficult circumstance that is now plaguing our country. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully you'll join us again for our next episode of Tea with Miss G. I can't even talk with my tears. Thank you all.
Thank you.